talk about the largest ever survey of U.S. Catholics showing the faithful they want an end to communion in the hand. 16,000 people were asked. I'm one of them. Jesse's one of them. And so we're going to talk about that. But before I do that, I had forgotten. Let's bring the smartest guy into the room. Full Sheen ahead. St. Teresa of Avila was with Bishop Sheen. I thought this was very appropriate because we're going to talk about some sad situations about people's belief system and the Eucharist. You remember the St. Teresa of Avila said, "Let nothing disturb you, let nothing frighten you. All things are passing away. God never changes. Patience obtains all things." That's one of those statements that's right in my bathroom on my window there when I go to brush my teeth, because it makes me realize that, hey, calm down, dude. I mean, we're in God's presence. So I think that's a good quote from the St. Teresa of Avila. Jesse, I just said this was the largest survey ever, okay? And I want to set the stage for this. Just today, I heard one of the cardinal-elect bishops, he's going to be made a cardinal in December, from Colombia, and I saw the video where he said, nobody ever converts because of a tabernacle. You see, I question that, dude. Sorry, with all due respect. Whether you believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. He says, no, people convert because you talk to them. I said, why can't it be both? Are you kidding me? Jesse and I both know many people who have had Eucharistic miracles in their life where they realize that Jesus is there and they want him, and they convert to the Catholic faith. So, Jess, let's start off with this. Father Z's comments on this. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, Terry, this Father Z is one of the great.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the great theological minds that we have in the church today. I think he's been canceled. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, of course. Yes.
Yeah, I'm almost positive that he has. But he wrote the following. He still blogs, thanks be to God. And he says, I got an email from something called the Real Presence Coalition. I tried the website, but the link didn't work. I have sympathy, but I don't have more knowledge from their site.
Yeah.
The email, however, said that using Pew surveys about Eucharistic faith among U.S. Catholics, you'll recall that those results were not rosy. The Real Presence Coalition did their own survey to find out what might have caused a lack of faith in the Eucharist and what might be done to counteract the trend. This is what I read. Be prepared for a complete shock that will shock you. The Real Presence Coalition, and Terry and me were loosely affiliated with them, by the way.
We promoted this. We wanted everybody to fill it out.
Yeah, we know all of them, and
sure.
we have a loose collaboration with them.
Sure.
The RPC survey revealed that the loss of faith in the Real Presence has been precipitated by a combination of factors, including number one, receiving the Eucharist in the hand. Number two, scandal of offering the Eucharist to public sinners who reject Catholic teaching. Number three, lack of reverence on the part of both the laity and the priests. Number four, lack of solid catechesis. And number five, lost sense of the supernatural.
Amen. All the above. Back in the late 70s, when I was a very young man, Father Peter Stravinsky's article about get rid of extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist.
He wrote that?
Yeah, he wrote a beautiful article. And here I am, 20 years old or 22, whatever I was, in my early 20s. I read the article, I cut it up, and I went to a printing company, and I said, I want 10,000 copies of this. And so I printed it on bright colored paper, and I was going around to Catholic churches and putting it in the back of the churches because I wanted people to know that this is undermining the faith. Even I knew this, Jesse, as a young man, that it wasn't a good idea to be doing this with communion in the hand, the extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist all over. So I only say this because what is amazing to me, it's 50 years, Jesse, and we've seen the results, and it's been devastating. So continue, but I just want to point out that so many people have no idea. As you know, Jess, I've always asked people over the 45 years, do you believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist at churches? And 90% of them had no idea what I was talking about. So this article, let's keep going, because there's good points here. Go ahead.
Father Z writes,
yeah,
who would ever thought that something like communion in the hand would do anything but nearly instantly destroy the faith in the Eucharist
and
devotion and reverence before the Eucharist.
Yep.
Mind you, and I'm not picking on the Real Presence Coalition. They're like the kid pointing at the emperor.
Exactly.
Good for that kid. They also posted, and this is great, what the correspondents thought might help to promote faith and reverence for the Eucharist. Again, prepare to be shocked. Survey respondents also offered a number of specific recommendations to U.S. bishops on how to restore belief in the real presence, including number one, encouraging the practice of receiving the Eucharist on the tongue while kneeling.
Yep.
2, catechizing the faithful. 3, promoting greater reverence for the Eucharist. 4, eliminating the use of extraordinary ministers. 5, withholding the Eucharist from public sinners. And 6, increasing Eucharistic events such as adoration and benediction.
You know what blows me away, Jesse, with those 5 points? It's so obvious. But, people, I still think there are people in the church who want to deny any of this, because I really question high officials in the church whether they believe in the real presence. They don't think this is a problem. If they thought it was a problem, they would address it. Now, I get it. Last summer, we had that Eucharistic Congress and all that. That's great. But let's put it in practice where you kneel for Holy Communion. It's one of the blessings that certain parishes in my archdiocese have communion rails, and they kneel, and communion is on the tongue. And I appreciate it. It's just a handful of them. But you know what I noticed, even that this morning? I'll go to an ex-parish, I won't say its name, and there's maybe 35 people at the daily mass. I go to the parish where there's reverence for the Blessed Sacrament, 350 people at, I'll tell you where it is, folks, St. Therese Catholic Church in Alhambra. Go there, and you'll find out on a daily mass, hundreds of people kneeling at the communion rail, receiving on the tongue. Is there a connection? I think so. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, Terry, and God bless the Real Presence Coalition.
Oh, they did a great job.
Yeah,
The biggest survey ever, Jesse. 16,000 people is a huge amount of people to survey to get a good feeling, a good announcement of what people believe and what they think. I would love to see this right now in Rome, this survey being addressed more than, should we ordain women to the priesthood? Are you kidding me? This is what we need to be talking about. Jesus Christ's presence in the Eucharist, not should we do more global warming? This is, talk about that. This is what we need to really shout from the rooftops to our leaders. Come on, dude, get back to Jesus Christ. Stop being so worldly and talking about worldly things. Go ahead.
That's right. Father Z writes, he says, can you imagine telling people that what the church teaches and in their sight, and as they watch how the church's pastors and teachers behave as if they too believed it all? Imagine for a second trying reverence as in Eucharistic devotions like exposition and benediction, sort of as if the Eucharist was something important. Can you get your mind around how backwardist it all is? Get rid of communion in the hand.
Amen.
Get rid of extraordinary ministers of communion, the technical title.
Yep, check.
Not giving the Eucharistic higgledy to fierce promoters of the murder of babies.
Amen.
Can you imagine? Hang on. Kneeling.
What a novel
Nothing
idea.
they have said is new, either about why faith in the Eucharist is a disaster or how it can be reversed. Nothing. However, they said it, good for them. He's talking about the Real Presence Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
He says we need more and more of this until things start to change. The demographic sinkhole is still expanding and taking swaths out of our ambient. We need some serious work. We need tradition.
You think?
We need the obvious. Also go to confession. That's a good starting place. Let's start with our own state of life and state of soul. Terry.
God bless, Father. And Jesse, again, when I look at this survey, and it points out that 97% of the recipients are saying that they attend Mass at least once a week, and they believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Most respondents, 84%, identify themselves as Catholics from the cradle. And here's an interesting one. Asked about what they think is the biggest loss of faith, overwhelmingly, they cited Holy Communion in the hand, while standing with nearly 58% said it had the greatest level of impact. Think about what happened 500 years ago when the Protestants left the church with Martin Luther, 1517. What did they start practicing on their services? communion in the hand, standing. They had to get it accomplished to get people the idea that is just a symbol when they go to their church services. And let's be honest again, Jesse, we know that orthodoxy, when it comes to the Eucharist, Eucharistic adoration, it brings forth vocations to the priesthood, to the married life. This is so much of a no-brainer that for us to have to tell our church leaders that this survey's out, and I haven't heard anybody other than Bishop Strickland, because I talked to him about this survey, say, yeah, it's obvious we didn't do a good job as leaders in the church. He's saying that, and he's right, because we need to, actions speak louder than words. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, Terry, it's everything that the Real Presence Coalition is mentioning.
Yeah.
It's obvious. It's
yeah.
just real obvious things. And to me, it sounds like all the things that are causing the loss of faith are exactly what the Real Presence Coalition has outlined.
Yes.
And, this is happening in other parts of the world as well.
Oh, yeah.
You go to other countries as well. So it's not a U.S. problem. Other countries in Latin America, I've heard the same thing, that people are denied Holy Communion in the hand, unless you receive in the hand. And many Latin American countries won't let you kneel down as well.
Just that cardinal from Colombia, I got it on video where he refused giving Holy Communion to someone kneeling down and on the tongue. There's a good example. And in Netherlands, that was the first European country in the 60s that started giving communion in the hand. And they just kept doing it until they got, by disobedience, they finally did the indult. But it's an interesting note. The Netherlands used to send hundreds and thousands of priests for missionaries. And I just looked this year, they got like 2 vocations for the whole country. And why has vocations dried up? Because the people don't know their faith. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Once you start denying the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, everything falls apart. And there's a good example of that in Europe and even in South America. We got to go back to what he said, like Father Z said, the traditions of the church. Why do you think there were so many people before 1960, 80% of the people going to Mass every Sunday, Jesse? Because they knew what they were receiving. But now, if they're just receiving a piece of bread, why go? So let's bring back a Eucharistic revival from the bottom, us lay people, and tell our leaders in our church, please, preach Jesus Christ's real presence in the Eucharist. Stop giving communion in the hand. Stop giving extraordinary ministers out to give out communion. You do it. Don't be lazy. Sorry, I had to say that because that's what it is. I saw it firsthand. Stay with us, family. We'll be back with more on the Terry and Jesse Show on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.